Hello and welcome to Cooking the Books with Heather. Today it is blueberry season again in North Carolina. Actually, it's been for a while. We're probably near the tail end, but we've got a ton of blueberries because one of my kids won't eat them. And so they've been just sort of sitting in the refrigerator, and we've got a lot from our produce box and we wanted to use them up. So today we're going to be making a blueberry cobbler with a cornmeal sugar cookie crust out of the Deep Run Roots cookbook because, blueberries grow very well in eastern North Carolina, and there are a lot of blueberry farms, so we get a lot of blueberries. And there's a whole blueberry section in the book. We don't make a lot of blueberry stuff because like I said, one of my kids won't eat them. But anyway, the first step here is to get the filling ready because it has to sort of hang out in the refrigerator for a little while. You start with quite a bit of blueberries. We're going to bake this in a 9x13 pan, so the filling is going to, have to fill that up pretty well. I've already weighed these out. I washed them, weighed them out, and kind of went through them to see if I could find any stems, because sometimes there are stems, and I take them out if I can find them. But if a few are in there, it's fine. Also, she says you can use older fruit for this. Like I said, some of these have been hanging out in the refrigerator for a while. So I tried to pick out, I checked for any moldy bits, but there weren't any. Blueberries are great for that. Honestly, they have such a tough skin that unlike strawberries, they last in the refrigerator for quite a while. A lot longer than strawberries. Strawberries, you have max a week. Anyway, so we have the blueberries. I'm gonna go ahead and put sugar. There's a decent amount of sugar in this, but blueberries have a bit of a tartness to them, so, sugar's not bad. I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of salt. Always add a little bit of salt, even in sweet things. And then I have lemon zest that took off with a microplane. If you don't have one of those, get one. They're not that expensive, and they're not that expensive, and they are so useful for zesting and Parmesan cheese and things like that. I use them all the time. Oh, and ginger. Love it, love it, love it. Okay. And then lemon juice. So I am going to confess that this is not all entirely fresh lemon juice. The amount the recipe called for was a little bit more than the amount of zested lemons that it called for. My lemons didn't have as much juice as the recipe called for, so I augmented with a little bit of bottled lemon juice. It's fine. Now, do I think that she measures the lemon juice when she makes this? Probably not. My guess is she zests the lemons and then uses the juice from them, and then, in a book, having exact measurements is important. But I'm guessing she probably just uses the amount that come from the lemons that she zested. Anyway, so now we sort of mix this up, and we want to try to break about half of the berries, break the skins so that they release their juices. Because like I said, they have a very tough skin, and unlike strawberries where, you slice them up because they're larger, and add juice or add sugar, and then they will macerate and release their juices without doing this. Blueberries, you have to kind of mash a little bit if that's what you are aiming for. So I'm just trying to mash up some, but not all. I considered using a potato masher, but honestly, I don't think it would work all that well. Because I think they would probably just slip out in between the tines of the kind of potato masher that I have. All right. I think I'm about there. I think I've got enough, sort of blueberry juices in here that we will probably be okay for the next step. And she says that this should hang out in the refrigerator for 2 hours up to overnight. We're just gonna have it later today. And so next time you'll see me, we'll be making the crust. The cornmeal sugar cookie crust, but that is supposed to be at room temperature when you add it to the cobbler. So I'm just gonna make it right before we bake it. You can make it beforehand. You can make all of this the night before and then just put it together and bake it when you need it. I'm not gonna do that today, but that seems to be it. And we'll be right back. So now it's been almost 2 hours that our blueberries have been in the refrigerator, and we're gonna start assembling the crust. First, this goes together like a cookie, as the title suggests. But so first we're going to combine the dry ingredients. We've got cornmeal here and some plain all-purpose flour. And then we have to add some salt and some baking powder. And we're just gonna mix this together. So it'll be ready to add to our wet ingredients. And I'm of course going to make a mess like I always do. All right. That is pretty well combined. So now I have to get my mixer out because we're going to use that for this next step. Second. So my mixer is now set up with the paddle attachment, and you start with 3 full sticks of butter. This is not a typo. There is a lot of butter in this crust. Also, I'm going to keep these wrappers and use them to butter the 9x13 dish. There's plenty left on it, and I'm not going to worry about scraping it all off because I'm just going to use the wrappers to butter the dish. Good tip. So what's 1? And 3. A lot of butter. Okay, we're going to cream this with the sugars. So I have mostly white sugar, just a little bit of light brown sugar here. And we're going to cream this until it is light and fluffy, just like any other cookie recipe. Okay, I think this is good for now. It's pretty creamy. It's not super granulated anymore. It's very light and fluffy. And stopped and scraped it down a couple times, just like usual. And I'm gonna add an egg. And the vanilla. So just a little vanilla extract. Okay, I'm gonna give this just a little bit more just to get that incorporated well. And now I'm gonna add this a little bit at a time. I think a little bit at a time. Yeah. Slowly add the dry ingredients until it sort of just comes together. I'm just gonna leave it on stir and add a spoonful at a time or so as it takes it. I don't want it, if you add a lot and then turn it on high, you get big puff of flour, so don't want that. About half of it in, and I'm just gonna kind of scrape it off of here, off of the paddle and off of the sides, just kind of make sure everything gets incorporated well. All right, just one more time. You don't want to over mix it once you start adding the flour, because you'll develop the gluten and it won't be as crumbly. There we go. Just want to get it all combined, no dry spots. I think we're good. Now you can, if you're waiting to make this, if you're making this ahead of time, you can wrap this up, put it in the refrigerator, and do the rest later. I'm going to bake mine really soon. But like I said, this has to be at room temperature when you put it on top of the cobbler, because it's supposed to be a sticky mess right now. Kind of like a cookie dough, as the recipe title suggests. So I'll try and get as much off of here as I can, and then we'll put the mixer away and start putting it all together. Okay, so I have all my parts together, and now I can assemble the whole thing. Like I said, I use the butter wrappers to butter my dish. You can do these in single serving ramekins, whatever you have, pretty little things, if you want to do it that way. She says what's important is the ratio. You want basically 3 parts filling to 1 part crust. So however deep your ramekins are, your serving vessels, do whatever. She says about 1.5 inches of filling to 1/2 inch of crust. So 3 to 1. So we're just gonna spoon this in here. I don't know why we're not just pouring it, but I think I'll probably do that. She says to spoon it, but it's just gonna pour. All right. Certainly smell the lemon, and there's a lot of juices in there, so I think that'll be good. I don't feel like we're 1.5 inches deep, but maybe we are. Whatever. And now I've washed my hands, because we use your hands for this. It's a very sticky dough. She says usually you'd be instructed to, roll this out, but in this case, no. Use your hands. So that's what I'm gonna do. And just take a bit of it and make it about 1/2 inch thick, and pat it out, and then about 1/2 inch thick, lay it on top, and continue doing that until you have almost covered. You want a few bits poking out, and you don't want to overlap this crust. This was super sticky, and it's all over my hands, and I may have gotten a little bit too thick on my first ones, as I have been admonished, but I think we're just about right, honestly, because we've covered just about all of it. Have a few pieces, get back under there, a few pieces, sort of areas where it's, you can see the filling, so it can bubble up and be beautiful. And that's it. So now I've got my my oven heated to 350, and I'm gonna put this in the oven for about an hour. So first I'm gonna wash my hands. See you when it's done. I've just taken this out of the oven. For us, it cooked a little bit more than an hour, maybe hour 10, hour 15. At an hour, the middle was not quite brown, not quite puffy yet, but so you're looking for the dark side of golden brown, which I think we are, and the edges look a little crispy. So I think we're there. This is super hot. We're gonna wait until it cools a little bit, but we're gonna serve it warm with some vanilla ice cream, as generally people serve cobblers. She does say that you can use any other fruit that you want with this recipe. You can add spices that go with the fruit. She's even done it in the winter with like apples and that kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this tastes, and we'll let you know what we think. On this episode of Cooking the Books with Heather, you watched me make blueberry cobbler with a cornmeal sugar cookie crust from the Deep Run Roots cookbook. It was pretty easy. If you can make cookies, you can make the crust. I really liked that you didn't have to make it and let it sit in the refrigerator overnight or let it sit for hours before that. That made it much easier for me in my life. I could just put it together and then bake it right immediately. You do have to let the blueberry filling sit for a little bit, excuse me, to sort of get the juices together. That wasn't too hard. You could definitely do that the night before, and then just when you're ready to have this, go ahead, or when you're gonna have this in an hour and a half or 2 hours, go ahead and bake it off. Pretty easy. I would say it's pretty easy. It does take 3 sticks of butter, but the topping didn't feel greasy. It was good. I think the cornmeal really sort of absorbs that a lot more than plain flour would. So, but it was delicious. The sugar cookie crust was very crumbly and buttery and delicious. The blueberry stuff was a little heavy on the lemon for me. I would not back off on the lemon juice, but maybe back off on the lemon zest if you don't want it to be super lemony. It wasn't too sweet. It was really good, and all of the adults loved it. The kids didn't want it, but then again, half of them don't like blueberries in general. The other half don't generally eat desserts like this anyway. They'd rather have cookies or ice cream. I think they ate ice cream that night. Cookies or ice cream or popsicles or things like that, and that's fine. We just didn't share. So, yeah, all in all, pretty easy. No special equipment required beyond the mixer for the cookie dough. But that's a relatively, you could do that with a hand mixer, honestly. Yeah, so we enjoyed the recipe. I hope you enjoyed watching me make it. And if you did, give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and come back and watch me make something else.